But with that being said, guys, man, what a week in wrestling. And you know what? I wouldn't do this any justice at all, like at all, if I didn't have any help. And I am pleased, and honored that we have a community member and a fellow podcaster from Smarkdown Podcasting. We've got, let me introduce him. I'm gonna let him introduce himself because if I do it, I'm about to probably slaughter it, even though I promised him that I wasn't going to slaughter it. But that's what happens sometimes. Go ahead and introduce yourself, my friend.
So, hey guys, my name is João Basílio. I am a Portuguese YouTuber. I can't really call myself a YouTuber. It's weird because I have a small little channel called Smarkdown. It started as a project where it was just me talking to a camera, and 8 years later, it's the biggest channel dedicated to pro wrestling in Portugal. It has several people collaborating on it, and we do live streams and we do video analysis and all sorts of stuff. And we're present in pretty much every aspect of the Portuguese professional wrestling scene. And yeah, it's pretty cool. So if you know Portuguese, it's completely in Portuguese. And if you want to check out what Portuguese fans think about pro wrestling, because there's still a few of us. We're a small community, but there's a few of us. Come check. Yeah.
Gotta start somewhere, right? All right, my friend. Well, before we get in, I know it's gonna get heated, and we're gonna talk about some things. Before we get into the wrestling, for me, I always like when I interview, or have guests on my show. I like to kind of understand like what got them into wrestling because I think it's important to understand, like, how you got into this passionate world that we call professional wrestling or professional entertainment wrestling or sports entertainment or whatever kind of moniker you want to use. But how did you get into wrestling?
Or 12 years old, and I was watching TV on my room, and then I came across Raw. It was like it was on a cable channel that we have over here, and it was like, what is this? I've never seen anything like this. And I still remember that the first match that I watched in full was the famous Iron Man match, 1 hour Iron Man match on Raw between Triple H and Chris Benoit for the World Heavyweight Championship. That was my first glimpse into the world of pro wrestling, and it was a great match. Um, and then that got me wondering because I had no internet access at the time, so I was like, "What is this?" Of course, like I asked my parents, the first thing that came out of their mouths was, "Oh yeah, that's fake," and I was like, "Yeah, all right, I know I'm a little kid. I don't believe in Santa anymore. So I can I like come on, give me some credit. But like this is interesting. These characters. They're larger than life. They're pretty awesome. So like I wanted to know more about this, and so I kept watching on TV, and we don't. Like I said, I didn't have internet, so my access to it was pretty limited. I got a friend that got me WrestleMania 21 on on a USB stick,
Hmm.
and I I kept it on my computer, and like I must have watched it like 20 times because it was the only thing I could do except by watching on television. It was an awesome WrestleMania, to be honest. And I remember at a time, like I was 13, I guess, and as when I turned on my computer, I set it up so it would play John Cena's theme. So like I was a big Cena mark, uh, but I was 13 years old, so I mean, come on. Um, then I got a bit disconnected because life and teenage dramas get in the way of things, and I sort of left it by the side, and I was like,
So what
what
year? What
actually?
year would you be talking about when you kind of disconnected? Because I think we all go through that period of time, and especially from the early age of wrestling to like towards our middle age, middle age, maybe teenage age kind of thing.
Yeah,
What point in time do you recall that you
2008.
Okay.
I guess. Yeah.
Kind
And
of
then
tail
what
end of the
actually
Attitude Era. I think that was right. The tail end.
the 2008
Yeah.
um, the ruthless aggression
Ruthless
era.
Aggression Era. There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I still remember this because it's really funny. It's what got me into making YouTube videos and what got me into wrestling again. I broke up with my girl at the time, and I was like, what do I do now? I mean, and I stumbled upon a Portuguese news website,
Mm-hmm.
wrestling news, and I was like, I was reading an article. I was like, this dude doesn't know what he's talking about. It's so blatant. What the hell? And I never do this because I'm not really big into commenting.
Mm-hmm.
But I commented, and the guy came back with, "Well, if you can do better, do it." And I was like, "Yeah, I will." So I
Challenge
was like,
accepted.
and I did, and I started writing articles for that website. And then they said, "Oh, we have a podcast. I'll be on the podcast." And 2 months later, I was organizing the podcast
Mm-hmm.
and I was doing live streams. And then the day came where I was like, I should do a video. I want to talk about something. And no one's talking about this. There's no videos, there's no articles about Portuguese pro wrestling. That shows were happening, very small, like 30, 40 people shows. But no one's talking about this. And I want to talk about this because they were releasing the shows online. So, like, we could watch. I was like, no one's talking about this. I want to talk about this. I want to give my opinion. Maybe that'll get some people commenting, and like, we can talk about this. So around 8.5 years ago, I did my first video, and it was about a Portuguese wrestling show. And since then, it's been almost a part-time job, like watching wrestling. Ever since that first video, I've never missed a video. I started doing 3 videos a week, and then I established my weekly schedule. It's like 1 video a week and a stream. And I was like, I've never stopped since. And I've never stopped watching wrestling since as well. So it's been a part-time job of sorts, and it's brought me a lot of things.
You're just
Brought me a
passionate,
lot of
man. You're just
friends.
passionate.
Yeah. And it gets things into your life. Like I can say that I got some girls because of my YouTube channel.
Nice.
Which is it's not something everyone can say.
Yeah, just make sure you don't let that power go to your head, man. All right, that's how you get in trouble.
True. I've gotten a lot of friends, made a few enemies too. It happens. It's the internet. I got another part-time job that I learned by myself, which was poster making. I do posters for a lot of companies, like in the U.S., Canada, UK, some in Portugal. I got actually involved in wrestling at the moment because I'm part of a Portuguese wrestling company, and I help organize shows. I'm a heel manager of a stable.
Okay.
So I have my fingers in a lot of pies at the moment. So it's pretty cool. And that whole thing started because my girl broke up with me. So
You got to take that life experience and you got to put it into something productive. Like put it in the ring. There you go, man. I feel you, man. I feel you. I see that, man. So let me ask going into the little promotion thing that you're doing, like aside from the the relationship aspect, what kind of things do you think that helps you like keep that passion and use that into like a character or of sorts, or you know what I'm saying?
that's really easy because I don't want to really get into the whole storyline aspect but I started as a ring announcer because this is literally what happened. I went down south, it was in the south of Portugal, for a show to watch, and they were like, and I was meeting with some friends who were the wrestlers on the show and the people organizing, and they were like, oh yeah, we got this guy doing the ring announcing, but he's not really a fan of it. And I was like, dude, I host a wrestling podcast every week. How hard can it be to host a show? So I was like, I'll do it. If you need me to, I'll do it. And it was like, hell yeah, you can do it. I've seen you do it on the internet. You can totally do it. So I started as a ring announcer, and then there was a necessity for like an authority figure. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'll do it. I can do it. I'm hosting the shows. It's pretty natural. It's a natural fit to have me also as like a GM, because well, I'm already there with a microphone in my hand. I
Mm-hmm.
can do a ruling on the spot, super easy. And then came the necessity to create a heel stable, and I was like, all right, so you got the champ, you got the top heel. He's he says he has everything going for him. He has all the victories. He deserves a title shot, and the company won't give it to him. That's cool. Then you got another guy who has his cousin, and they're in a tag team, but he keeps losing matches while his cousin keeps winning
Mm-hmm.
and became the champion. So he's like, what do I have to do? And then there's me, who's the guy that did this for 8 years, doing videos and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always like the guy who came to the show and like, oh, here comes Joao. He's really cool. Have you paid the ticket yet? Great, dude. Everyone was really nice to me,
Mm-hmm.
but like everyone was like, oh, he's the YouTube kid. Like, yeah, be nice to him so he says good stuff about you on his podcast.
Yeah, they're trying to get over, man.
Exactly. So like I had that motivation. So when I did my heel turn, which was like we set up the title match, and I pulled the ref out, and then the champ was like, "What the hell? What's happening?" And then his cousin came out to help, and holy shit, he turns on him as well. So it was like a big moment. And I can I have my claim to fame is that I made the 3 count that changed the championship
Nice.
in this promotions. One of my big dreams was to become a referee, actually, and I hope it's something I can still do in the future. So I can say I made the 3 count that changed wrestling history in Portugal. So, kind of.
It's always the
And we
little
set up,
things, man. It's always the little things that
yeah,
make it bigger in the end, man. And when you do make that transition to a referee, let me know, because I got tons of questions, about the role of a referee, and how they pace things around, and I want to get it from like someone who's actually done the job. So you have to promise me that when you become
oh,
that referee, when you achieve that goal, that boyhood dream with a tear in your eye, you're gonna come back on the show and you're gonna report
because
that to us.
the interesting thing is over here we have some really great referees and we have a really shitty one. So I know from experience what I should do and definitely what I shouldn't do.
Gotcha.
So, and watching a lot of wrestling, like you sort of pick up things, and you gotta watch the referees in the match. Like sometimes some matches are like a little more boring, and you start focusing on other things. Some people look at the crowd. Some people start looking at the ring for some reason. Always look at the referees because they're an integral part of the
Right.
match.
They pace the
And
match for the wrestlers.
exactly,
It's
and
kind of
not just
hard
in
to
WWE.
yeah, and it's kind of hard to really like from the outside looking in from a television perspective. It's kind of really difficult because of the way that the production cuts away from the referee.
Yeah.
To really, so that's kind of interesting that you would, that's one of your dreams and goals is to be a referee, considering that you don't really see a lot of them. Now, when you're there live, it's different. Like they're up in your face, you get to see everything. But
Hmm.
just looking in from a TV perspective, I think that's pretty interesting that that's what you want to do.
And I mean, WWE has some great referees, but like my major inspirations are like indie referees, like
Hmm.
Bryce Remsburg. Most recently, oh, what's her name from AEW? They call her Girl Hebner.
Girl Hubner.
Uh, I mean, it's Aubrey. I can't remember her name, but she's also really good. And who else? There was another ref.
Aubrey Edwards.
Aubrey Edwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. And Rick Knox from PWG,
Yep.
now AEW as well. Phenomenal refs. They're like, they can be the focus of their spot because they can have spots in the match because they know what they can do. Like Bryce is an amazing comedic referee,
Mm-hmm.
so they can have their spot, but at the same time they can fade into the background and give the superstars their spot to
Yeah,
shine.
they're shine.
So you gotta find that middle point between being a part of the match but not being too noticeable, not stealing the thunder from the wrestlers.
Right.
So those guys can do that. Like if you need them to do a comedic spot, they'll do it. If you need them just to be refs and like to be the 3 count that we hear but don't really look at, like we look at the shoulders, we look at the wrestlers, we don't really care about the ref except for that, for the noise of the 1, 2, 3.
Right.
Like that's perfect. That's what we need in a match. So that's one of the things like that interests me in being a referee because they are important, but they're like sort of invisible. So it's interesting. It's part of it's part of what makes wrestling great.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that go into making a show, and that's often overlooked by fans.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always had a lot of interest in
The
it.
smallest details are always overlooked by the fans. So I have never dismissed the importance of a referee. I mean, my favorite referee of all time is Nick Patrick. And he gets a lot of crap, but I mean, he was he's integral in a lot of, just like Hebner, man. He was integral in a lot of important aspects, and the flows of his matches were just like amazing as well. So that's like kudos to him. The unsung hero is the referees for sure. So switching gears just a little bit. I do want to, just for the record, who's your favorite wrestler of all time?
CM Punk.
CM Punk.
I have to say CM Punk.
Okay,
All time.
I can respect that. The follow-up question, the obvious follow-up question is: you think that he will ever wrestle again for a professional, like for a big-time organization?
See, for the last since he retired, I've been telling everyone, like, leave the dude alone. Everyone wants to see him come back. I'm just like, I look at wrestlers not just as wrestlers but as people, because they are people. But a lot of fans forget that sometimes. They're like, oh, they're here for our entertainment. No, they're people.
Yeah.
So treat them like people.
Yep.
Like, I want the dude to be happy, so I want him to do what he wants. I'm not a big MMA guy, but if he's into MMA, if he wants to do MMA, if he wants to commentate, like, sure, do your thing. I'm a fan. I'm as much a fan of CM Punk as I am a fan of Phil Brooks. So let him do his thing. But recently, with All Out coming at the end of the month, and he's announced for StarCast, he like, come on, he hasn't done anything really substantial since he got out of WWE and they had those MMA matches on the UFC. I'm like, this is too perfect. Now I'm buying into it. Now I'm like,
The stars are aligning, huh? You got the stars, they're aligning.
and I know I'm setting myself up for disappointment.
It's in Chicago.
I mean, everyone was saying that for last year for All In.
Yeah.
And I was like, no way. No chance.
Well, I mean,
this year,
and the funny part about it is that they had released that footage of him as at an indie organization, masked,
Yeah.
and doing a couple of wrestling moves and stuff like that. So I don't think that you're beyond like crazy to think that he won't come. But I completely agree with you, man. Like CM Punk is arguably one of my favorite wrestlers as well, and I've always been in the camp with him that if the dude wants to come back to wrestling, he'll come back to wrestling. In the meantime, just let him do his thing, man. There's life after wrestling, and you just gotta let them do their thing. They're not our servants, right? They're not monkeys dancing monkeys, and I agree. Sometimes fans get so enthralled and passionate about the character itself that they forget to look at the person behind the character. So I completely agree with you on that, man. But that's good, man. That's good. So now that we got the formalities out of the way, my friend,